The young and the restless spoilers Claire stood at the precipice of an impossible choice, one that pitted the only family she had ever known against a love that promised freedom and change. In the glimmering yet treacherous corridors of power that defined the Newman dynasty, secrets and loyalties were currency, and Claire had just come into possession of a treasure trove that could shatter empires. For years, the long-standing feud between Victor and Jack had fueled the tension within the Newman family, each man driven by an insatiable hunger for dominance. Now, as the two men prepared to do everything in their power, including resorting to lethal measures, to destroy each other, Claire found herself tangled in a web of deceit and ambition. She had uncovered some of the most dangerous secrets regarding her grandfather and the inner workings of the Newman legacy. These secrets were not mere whispers of scandal, but revelations that could dramatically reverse the power dynamic, offering Jack and Kyle the leverage they needed to topple Victor. Yet, for all its potential, the knowledge came with a curse. Its use would irreparably alter the bonds of family. Victor, ever the master manipulator, was not blind to the threat that Claire posed. His attempts to bribe her were as relentless as his determination to control every facet of the Newman empire. More disturbingly, he harbored a twisted desire for Claire to betray her own kin. Specifically, he wanted her to turn against Kyle, her beloved confidant and partner in a legacy of loyalty. Such a betrayal was unthinkable to Claire, who had always regarded family as sacred, even in a dynasty steeped in corruption and power struggles. With her heart pounding in her chest and the weight of destiny upon her shoulders, Claire arranged a clandestine meeting with Kyle and Jack. In the quiet sanctuary of a private conference room in an old mansion, where the faded grandeur of the Newman past still lingered, she laid out the damning secrets she had uncovered. The room was thick with tension as she detailed every sordid detail: financial deceptions, betrayals that stretched back decades, and alliances that could crumble with a single revelation. Jack's eyes glittered with a mix of ambition and desire. "Claire," he murmured, almost as if savoring the moment, "I can see it in you, a longing not just for justice, but for something more. Something that transcends mere loyalty. You want to be more than a pawn in Victor's game. I know you long to become a part of something grand, even to the point of being my daughter-in-law." His insinuation, delivered in a tone laced with both seduction and promise, sent a shiver down her spine. It was a dangerous compliment, one that suggested a merging of bloodlines and alliances that could redefine everything. Kyle, ever the voice of caution, interjected. "Jack, we must tread carefully. Claire's secrets are powerful weapons, but using them recklessly could destroy her. If we defeat Victor with these revelations, what then? Claire would be left with nothing but the ruins of her once proud family. We must consider the cost of such a victory." His words hung in the air, a stark reminder that in the world they inhabited, every gain came with a steep price. Claire listened intently to both men, torn between a desire to free herself from the oppressive control of Victor and a fear of losing everything that had ever defined her. "I know the risks," she confessed softly, her eyes blazing with determination. "I am aware that Victor can strike me down or punish me at any moment. Yet, I cannot stand by and watch him continue his tyranny over our family. I must act, even if it means facing the wrath of the man I once admired." Her voice trembled with both resolve and sorrow. A poignant mixture of courage and the pain of inevitable sacrifice. Victor's looming presence was a constant, insidious threat. He had spent his life building a fortress of power and influence, one that was now threatened by the very bloodline he sought to control. His unyielding pursuit of dominance meant that any misstep by those around him was an opportunity he would seize without mercy. He believed that if he could corrupt Claire, if he could compel her to betray Kyle and align with his own twisted ambitions, he could secure his legacy indefinitely. But Claire's defiance was a beacon of hope for those who longed for change. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. He knew that if he dared to use Claire's secrets, the fallout would be catastrophic not only for Victor but for the entire Newman family. Yet he also recognized that the timing was critical. "Claire," he said in a low, conspiratorial tone, "if we expose these truths at the right moment, Victor won't just be weakened, he'll be left reeling, unable to recover his hold on power. But if I unleash this information too early, or use it to protect you, I fear that you will never be forgiven. Not by your family, and certainly not by those who have already suffered under Victor's rule. Kyle's voice, usually measured and pragmatic, now carried an undercurrent of desperation. We need to ensure that any move we make is calculated. We have to ask ourselves, if we bring Victor down, what becomes of Claire? She will be caught in the crossfire, stripped of her ties to the family she once knew, left to wander in a world that is hostile and uncertain. His words were a stark reminder of the precarious balance they all faced, between ambition and love, between the desire for retribution and the need for familial unity. In that moment of intense vulnerability, Claire made a choice that would define her future. "I will stand by what is right," she declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging within. "I choose to fight for a future where our family is no longer shackled by Victor's tyranny. But I must also choose my own path, a path that might lead me away from everything I have ever known. I am ready to embrace that risk." The decision sent ripples through the room. Jack and Kyle exchanged a look of both admiration and apprehension. They recognized that while Claire's determination could be the catalyst for monumental change, it also carried the potential for immense personal loss. Jack, still intrigued by the idea of Claire as not only a revolutionary force but as someone intimately connected to him, felt a surge of conflicted emotion. He wanted to protect her, to mold her into a cornerstone of his envisioned future, a future where the old order was dismantled and replaced by something new and just. Yet deep down, he understood the bitter irony of the situation. "Claire," he murmured, "if we succeed in bringing down Victor, what will you have left? Your entire family, the legacy you grew up with, it will all be in ruins. And even if we do prevail, I fear the cost may be too high for you to bear." His tone was a blend of warning and wistfulness, a recognition that even the noblest of causes often demanded unbearable sacrifices. For Claire, the path ahead was murky and fraught with peril. She could feel the weight of her ancestors' sins pressing down on her, each secret a chain linking her to a past that was as glorious as it was corrupted. And yet, in that room, as she looked into the eyes of Jack and Kyle, she sensed that a new dawn was possible, a dawn where the old tyrannies could be overthrown and a more just, compassionate future could take root. The alliance between Jack and Kyle was tentative, bound together by the fragile hope that they might indeed defeat Victor and reclaim the soul of the Newman family. But the question that lingered in every silent pause was this: if Victor were vanquished, would Claire be left with a void too vast to fill? Without the legacy of her family, could she truly find solace and identity in a world that had been built on secrets and lies? As the meeting drew to a close, the three stood at the crossroads of destiny. Each of them carried the heavy burden of their choices, the potential to reshape a dynasty or to shatter it beyond repair. Claire, resolute yet vulnerable, vowed to embrace the uncertainty of her future, knowing that every step forward might lead her deeper into a labyrinth of betrayal and loss. In the end, the night's revelations and decisions would have consequences that reverberated far beyond that secret chamber. In a world where power was measured and secrets and alliances were as shifting as the sands, Claire had taken the first step toward forging a new identity, one that could either liberate her from the shackles of the past or condemn her to a life of perpetual exile from everything she once held dear. And so, as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon of Genoa City, a silent promise lingered in the air, a promise that even in the face of overwhelming risk, the courage to choose one's own path was the only hope for a future unburdened by the ghosts of yesterday. The trap is set. Victoria's ultimate gamble. Victor's fury was a force to be reckoned with. When he discovered that his granddaughter, Claire, had stolen sensitive documents from Newman Enterprises and handed them over to Jack, his reaction was nothing short of explosive. In his eyes, such an act was the epitome of betrayal, yet beneath the seething anger lay a calculated test of loyalty. Victor had long suspected that Claire's ambitions might one day lead her astray, and he was determined to weed out any trace of disloyalty. But Victor was not a man driven solely by wrath. He was cunning and ruthless, and today he had a plan far more devious than a simple punishment. Knowing the volatile nature of family politics and the power struggles that had long defined the Newman legacy, he orchestrated an elaborate trap. With meticulous precision, Victor planted forged evidence, a damning dossier that painted Claire as a willing conspirator, eager to undermine Newman Enterprises from within. He was prepared to cast her aside without a backward glance if she failed his test. Jack, ever the opportunist, saw the potential to use Victor's own game against him. Yet, even as he seized upon the counterfeit evidence, it became clear that Jack's maneuver was ultimately futile, a meaningless move in a game where Victor's true objective was to see if Claire's heart truly belonged to the Newman family. For Claire, the situation was irreversibly dire. There was no turning back now. The very person she had once believed to be her protector had revealed a side of himself that was merciless and unforgiving. Victor would never accept a granddaughter who dared to defy the family's code, and now she stood ensnared in a trap of her own making, with fabricated evidence ready to seal her fate. The world around her was closing in, every moment drawing her nearer to a punishment she could not escape. In the midst of the chaos, one person was not willing to let fate take its cruel course without a fight: Victoria, Claire's mother. Unlike Victor, Victoria's love for her daughter had always been fierce and unconditional. She had seen the spark in Claire, a brilliance that, if nurtured, could one day transform the very face of the Newman legacy. Victoria had also watched, with growing concern, as Victor's grip on the family tightened, his methods becoming ever more draconian in his quest for control. Now, with Claire's future hanging by a thread, Victoria realized that drastic measures were needed. With quiet determination, she resolved to save her daughter from the cold, calculated clutches of Victor. Victoria knew that if she did nothing, Claire would be sacrificed on the altar of family tradition, a price too high for any mother to pay. That evening, in the shadowed corridors of the Newman estate, Victoria began to lay the groundwork for her bold rescue. She gathered every scrap of genuine evidence that might contradict Victor's forged documents, a series of confidential memos, hidden financial records, and personal correspondences that painted a very different picture of Claire's loyalty and intentions. Each piece of evidence was a lifeline, a way to reveal the truth behind Victor's sinister test. In a secret meeting held in the estate's private study, Victoria confronted Claire. The atmosphere was tense as mother and daughter spoke in hushed, urgent tones. "Claire," Victoria whispered, her voice both tender and steely, "I know what Victor has done. I know he's using this as a test, a trap to see if you're truly one of us. But you mustn't believe that you're alone in this. I have found evidence, a record of the truth, that can prove your loyalty beyond doubt." Claire's eyes, red-rimmed from tears and exhaustion, searched her mother's face. "But what if it's not enough, Mother? What if he never forgives this betrayal?" she pleaded, the weight of her predicament evident in every word. Victoria placed a gentle hand on Claire's shoulder. "Victor is as brilliant as he is cruel. He doesn't care about your pain or your potential. He only cares about maintaining control. We cannot let his machinations dictate your future. You have to trust that the truth will prevail, and that I will stand by you, no matter the cost." Meanwhile, behind closed doors in Victor's office, Jack smugly reviewed the counterfeit dossier, unaware that Victoria was already mobilizing a counteroffensive. The forged evidence, meticulously prepared by Victor himself, was intended to be the final nail in Claire's coffin. But Victoria's counter-evidence was the wild card. A reminder that truth has a way of coming to light even in the darkest of schemes. Victoria's plan was daring, and it came with enormous risks. By challenging Victor's authority so directly, she risked not only her position within the Newman Empire but also her very life. Yet, for Victoria, the price of allowing her daughter to be condemned was far greater. In a final act of defiance, Victoria resolved to confront Victor in person, to demand that he remove the trap he had so carefully set and allow Claire the chance to redeem herself. In a dramatic confrontation in the grand foyer of the Newman mansion, Victoria's eyes blazed with determination as she faced Victor. "You have orchestrated this farce long enough," she declared, her voice echoing off the marble walls. "I have proof that Claire is not your traitor, she is my daughter, and she is loyal to the family in ways you could never understand. If you do not retract your false accusations, then you leave us no choice but to expose your treachery to the entire board. Victor's face contorted with anger, but beneath the fury was a grudging respect for Victoria's audacity. He knew that a scandal of this magnitude could shatter the Newman empire, and that was precisely what he wanted, to remind everyone that loyalty was not just expected but demanded. Yet even he could not ignore the strength in Victoria's words, the unyielding maternal love that challenged his iron will. Jack and the rest of the family watched in tense silence, realizing that the delicate balance of power was about to shift dramatically. If Victor was defeated, the fallout would be enormous. Yet, for Victoria, the choice was clear: she would do whatever it took to save her daughter from a future devoid of compassion and freedom. And so, as night fell over the Newman estate and the storm of betrayal and loyalty raged on, Victoria prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. In her eyes, every secret uncovered, every document forged, was a price worth paying if it meant rescuing Claire from a fate engineered by cruelty and deceit. Victoria's bold gambit would either redeem her daughter's honor or irrevocably fracture the Newman family. But in that moment, with the weight of legacy and love pressing down on her, Victoria knew one thing for certain: she would never allow her daughter to be lost to the darkness of Victor's tyranny. The battle lines were drawn, and Victoria was ready to fight for a future where truth and love could triumph over treachery and ambition.